Amy Hinojosa, and I'm the president and CEO of MANA. We are so excited to host this virtual conference and create space for young Latinas and all people of color. I'm here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where I advocate for Latinas and their families every single day. And this is a long way from where this Mexican American grew up in Baytown, Texas. After visiting D.C. for the first time between my freshman and sophomore years of high school, I knew I wanted to live in this city. I just didn't know how to get here. So after college, I saved money and came to D.C., but I didn't have a job and I didn't know anyone. But I knew that I was a hard worker and willing to learn. It was a scary but rewarding time in my life because I met so many people and learned so many things. I wasn't afraid to try new things and prove myself along the way. I learned some really important lessons that I want to share with you. 1, be willing to work hard and learn everything you can. When you hustle and prove yourself, you will get more opportunities, and everything you learn will serve you later on. 2, be yourself. When you're self-confident, people will see who you are and appreciate you for it. Sometimes we think we need to fit in and maybe push our true selves aside to be successful. That's not true at all. What makes you different is what makes you valuable. You have a perspective that no one else has. 3, make all of the friends you can. Some people call it networking, but I prefer to make friends. Not everyone will be your best friends that you tell everything to. You shouldn't have too many of those. But you never know who can be helpful along your journey. So be a friendly face to everyone you encounter, and they'll be a friendly face to you. 4, success doesn't happen overnight. You will have to work longer and harder than you ever imagined. You may wonder if it's worth it. You may want to give up, but hard work does pay off. In my case, I worked my way up for 15 years at different organizations before I became the president and CEO of MANA. 5, your only competition is yourself. Don't compare your grades or your looks or your accomplishments with anyone else. They don't live your life. Your success doesn't have to mean someone else's failures. The last thing I want to tell you is something my dad tells me to this day. When he knows I have a big meeting or a big opportunity coming up, he'll say, "Mija, give it everything you've got." And what he means by that is when you have a great opportunity, do everything you can to be prepared and give the best of yourself for the best possible outcome. Even if you don't get the outcome you wanted, you won't have any regrets if you give it everything you've got. We hope you enjoy the REACH conference, and we just want you to know that you have a national network of Latinas from places just like where you're from, who look just like you, who believe in you, and believe you can be and do exactly what you want in this life. And we'll be cheering you on every step of the way.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
And welcome to the REACH Youth Conference presented by MANA National. The REACH Youth Conference is here to celebrate young Latinas and all women of any color told from the perspective of youth. That's right, we know young Latinas are resilient, engaged, accepting, courageous, and proud of their heritage. Get it? Reach. So the time is now to reach for something greater. So here's the rundown. We will be hearing from thought leaders all around the country, ready to discuss the most important topics facing youth today. We will be diving into the worlds of the environment, immigration reform, tech education and access, health and wellness, and leadership and advocacy, as well as a very special musical performance by a certain someone. Stay tuned to find out who. But before we dive into this crazy, impactful event, we have one more thing to share. We want you, that's right, to be part of the REACH as well. That is right. Through the whole conference, you will have the chance to share your thoughts and action plans after each speaker by creating in-feed posts on Instagram and Twitter. And if you use our special hashtag ReachYC and hashtag ManaReach, you will have your chance to win your very own Microsoft Surface tablet. That's right. So share to the world what you want out of life and how empowered you feel, because you don't know how you might inspire someone in the process. And also, it's pretty cool to get a free tablet, you know? Now let's begin with a shout out to a very special sponsor, AT&T.
2 words in any language hold the power to change a life. I am. Strong. And over the span of decades, the possibilities of I am for women have grown to include STEM roles, technical positions, and fields where women were once underrepresented.
Gonna lean on me, gonna lean on you, gonna power up and power through, gonna rise strong.
In this new era, let's recognize what a woman can be and our role in making it happen. Because together, as one,
I am a CEO.
Keep it coming.
I am an engineering executive.
Gonna power up and power through, gonna rise strong.
I am a disaster recovery specialist.
Gonna be around and you'll be mine. When we stand together, we do just fine.
I am an esports general manager.
Strong.
I am a sports media GM.
Gonna own up. Never gonna see these arms thrown up.
Yo soy CFO.
Gonna rise strong.
We believe. We believe.
We believe. We believe. We believe.
We believe.
We believe in the power of I am.
Gonna rise strong.
Thank you, AT&T, for that powerful video and all of your continued support. Next up, we have some fellow Hermanitas sharing their stories and what they hope for in the future.
I'm Jacinda, I'm from Fort Worth, and I'm going to 12th grade. My favorite subjects are history and English. I love history because you can learn from the past, and then I love English because I can write down my thoughts. I want to go to Northeastern University. I want to be in the FBI, and I want to study sociology, and I heard that they have a really good criminal justice program, so I wanted to do that. I think that we get looked down upon whenever we go into a specific career path, so I feel like men just look down on what we do when we can do so much more than what they think we can do. I say to live your life the way you want to. If you want to do something like a specific career, go for it. It doesn't matter what people say, just live how you want to live.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a freshman in college, and I am from Albuquerque. My favorite subjects in school is math and science. I'm really into biology and chemistry, and math just comes really easy once you know it. I am dual enrolling in the University of New Mexico and Central New Mexico Community College, and I am majoring in biology, and I hope to be an optometrist. I think the most important issue facing Latina teens today is the background of college. I feel like since I am the first generation of college students in my family, it's hard knowing what exactly I had to do to get to this point. So if it wasn't for the help that I've had with the Hermanita community, I don't think I would be able to go to college. So some service projects and community activism that I've done is here in New Mexico, we have a Roadrunner food bank, and it basically just feeds some people, like the people who don't know when their next meal is gonna come. So I did some volunteer work over there and I helped. And my high school, like every Tuesday of the month, we would have stuff just for our community to come and get a box of food. And so that way they knew that they had food at their house when they came home from school. And also I did some volunteer work. There's another community here in New Mexico, and it's called Mandy's Farm. And basically this farm gives jobs to people with disabilities. And they just give them goals to reach to help them be successful with their disabilities. So I had a lot of fun doing both of those. My advice for fellow teen Latinas is to just reach out to every opportunity that you are given. No matter how big or small, just reach every single little opportunity that you get, because it can make a big impact in your life. And you never know what amazing thing that will come your way that will be a big impact in your life. Thank you, Mana, for having me be a part of this conference. And you're watching Mana Youth Reach Conference. That was the Disney thing.
The environment. As we all know, it's the very thing that impacts the entire world and the very existence of us existing. It is a topic and fight more important than ever, and many Latinas have stepped in the forefront of this issue to find solutions to change our world for the better. In our first segment of our conference, we have a group of powerful Latinas in the world of environmental justice talking about their stories and the state of our world in a powerful panel discussion. But first, a message from the women that make Mana what it is, our Mana board members.
Hello, my name is Michelle Cuevas Stubblefield. My gender pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the chair of the National Board of Directors for Mana, and I live in Topeka, Kansas. In Topeka, we have a thriving community that celebrates our culture and heritage with Latinos in all levels of leadership, including our mayor, who is a Latina. This was not always the case. The road was not paved with understanding, and even today, many of you live in places where they say you don't belong. But here is what I want you to know. You belong. You are worthy. No matter where you are, where you go, there is space for you. Be proud of who you are and where you come from, celebrating the uniqueness and heritage that makes you special. This last year has been tough because of COVID and for so many other reasons. But please see the value in yourself that we see in you. Reach for your goals, no matter how big or small you think they may be. You have hermanas across the country who support and believe in you. Let's make this happen together.
Hello, precious young ladies, and thank you for participating in this very important and very empowering youth conference. My name is Leticia Trujillo, and I'm Vice Chair of the National Board of Directors for Mana, and I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I am an outreach worker with the homeless community, which includes working with abandoned and unaccompanied youth. And if I could give you one piece of advice, it would be to have empathy for the people around you. It's easy to get caught up in social media and teasing when others are doing it. It may seem harmless and not intended to be mean, but stop and think for a minute how that person might be feeling. Think about a kid who has a tough home life, who may not know if they'll have dinner that night. Someone who may have to fight for a spot at a homeless shelter just to try and get some rest. Stop and think about how much better it would be if that person had a friend or even just a kind word said to them. Making friends and being kind feels so much better than laughing at a cruel joke at someone else's expense. If you ever find yourself in this type of situation, choose to make a friend by being a friend and treat others the way you would want to be treated.
My name is Nicole Medina Stone, and I serve on the MANA National Board of Directors, and I come from Pecos, New Mexico. Well, I'm older now and I'm settled in my career. I remember sitting where you are today. I came from a single mother. My family didn't have a lot of money, and I just did not know how I was going to pay for college. But I knew it was a lifelong dream and that my goal was to be able to graduate from college. Over 14 years ago, I received a MANA scholarship, and that scholarship made all the difference in my life. I was able to graduate with my bachelor's degree, and the scholarship was $800. But to me, it might as well have been $1 million because there was no way I was going to be able to come up with $800 or my family could. And with that one scholarship, I was able to graduate with my bachelor's degree. And that was huge. That meant that I didn't have to take off another couple of semesters to save up money for college. And that meant I was able to graduate with my class. I have to share that I couldn't have done this without my community and without the support of my hermanas and without the support of MANA. So wherever you are, no matter if you're close to home or far away, I encourage you and other Latinas to find your community, to find your support system. And when you receive that support like I did, it makes you inspired and it makes you motivated, and you want to give back to the next generation of young Latinas. You want to be able to help lift them up so they can achieve their dreams. And that's why I continue to volunteer with my community to this day.
Hi, my name is Cassandra de la Cruz Oshinaye, and I serve on the MANA National Board of Directors. I live in Maryland. Volunteering and giving back to my community has always been important to me. We live in a time where our community is very misunderstood, more so depending on the color of your skin. This is why it's important that our voices be heard. It's important that we share our stories. It's important that we give voice to those who don't have one. And so I challenge you during this conference to think about the things that you are passionate about, where you know our community should be represented, whether it's immigration, education, homelessness, whatever it is. Pick one and make a difference. Reach for that which is beyond you. Give voice to those you may never have met.
I just want to say that, find yourself, find your voice, find your power, find positive mentors like you'll find in the organization of MANA, and just be the best that you can be, but you're not alone. You've got a great support network of Latinas that are there to support you forever.
To our young leaders, I would tell them that do not cower at the face of challenges. Do not be concerned about the color of your skin. Do not be concerned at all about the fact that you are a woman. You were made wonderfully and fearfully and made to lead and to be bold. Latinas have always been at the helms of our families, in our businesses. We are known for what we can do and what we give out. So to our the young leaders that are watching us, just go and pursue your dreams, and don't be scared to lead. We need you.
When you graduate, going to college, you're joining organizations that are near and dear to your heart, and continue to be involved. Stay engaged in some way, shape, or form. And if wanting to run for office, there's myself and many others who are in our community who more than happy to help mentor and guide and, answer any hard questions. But if it's in the corazón, if it's inside there that you want to do and work for your community, I'm here to help. And I know many others of us in our communities are too. If you have that dream, if you have that goal, if you want to do this, it can happen.
Welcome to everyone who is joining us. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. My name is Stephanie Lopez. I am the program manager at Latinas Represent. Latinas Represent is an initiative of the National Hispanic Leadership Agenda, NHLA for short, which is a national nonpartisan coalition made up of about 40 of the nation's leading Latino advocacy organizations that are working together to advance Latinos in the U.S. As an initiative, Latinas Represent focuses on empowering Latinas to transform our democracy to be more reflective and inclusive. We are so happy that each of you has taken time out of your day today to be part of this incredible conversation. And we're especially happy to have been able to partner with our NHLA coalition member, Green Latinos, to present today's event, a conversation with Latina environmental justice champions. We are super excited that we're having this event during Latino Conservation Week because we want to celebrate the legacy and leadership of Latinas in the environmental justice and conservation spaces, which we know to have a history of exclusion for our communities.
Yes, thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you, Latinas Represent, and thank you to our panelists that are here today, some amazing Latinas that we're joined with. So I'm really excited to introduce them to you all today. Just a little bit about Green Latinos. Green Latinos is an active comunidad of Latino, Latina, Latinx leaders, emboldened by the power and wisdom of our culture, united to demand equity and dismantle racism, resourced to win our environmental conservation and climate justice battles, and driven to secure our political, economic, cultural, and environmental liberation, or liberación ambiental. All the women in today's panel have incredible accomplishments. Some of them I have looked up for many years, and I'm really excited to be sharing space with them today. So I'll go over a little bit of their highlights of their bios, and then we'll kind of get it started, and they can talk a little bit about the amazing work that they have done here in the environmental movement. So I'm going to start with Irma. Irma Muñoz is the founder president of Mujeres de la Tierra, an environmental equity nonprofit focused on healing La Madre Tierra and redefining the traditional green dialogue. Mm-hmm. Next, we have Jessica Loya, is an environmental equity policy and campaign strategist. She serves as a coalition manager for the Next 100 Coalition, which is the only organized space focused on public land conservation and recreation that is led and centers BIPOC communities at the national level. She works with organizations, coalitions, and legislators to secure protections for public lands, climate, clean water, clean air, and environmental justice for communities across the country. Some of her previous experience include working at the White House Council on Environmental Quality, Office of Public Engagement, and with the Biden-Harris transition team. And last but not least, we have Raquel. Raquel Gomez is an avid outdoor adventurist and specialist with over 20 years of experience in youth programming. Her youth development work spans across various programs in several states around the U.S. She started a nonprofit in June 2020 called Ada Bay Outdoors, which is located in Phoenix, Arizona, and is committed to serving Black and brown girls who want to explore outside but don't feel safe and or lack the resources and general information on how to adventure outdoors. Again, welcome to you all.
We know that so many communities of color in the U.S. live in areas with limited access to nature and or the resources to even go outdoors. Why is it so important to get our communities outdoors, and how can we do that? I'll start with Raquel. Tell us a little bit more of your organization too, since that's what you're focusing on.
When I was growing up, I was so just enamored with the outdoors that I didn't realize I was the only brown person in all my groups. And I was like, it wasn't until I was an adult that I was like, oh, wow, I don't hang out with a lot of people who look like me outside. And so just recently, I feel like I've really made a decision to, be authentic in what I'm trying to do with Ada Bay Outdoors. And the only way that I can do that is if I begin to bridge the gap between my community and the outdoors. And so I think when I was working in Chicago at the rock climbing gym in Chicago at Brooklyn Boulders, there was this disconnect between the rock climbing gym and the Black and brown community. It was only white people who could afford to go to this rock climbing gym. It was only white people who got memberships. It was only white people who walked through the door. And so I started to become kind of uncomfortable with the situation. I'm like, I'm the only person who looks like me in here. I think we should change this. And so I brought it up to my supervisor and I said, I think that I would like to take on the role of trying to get more Black and brown people in the gym.
Thank you so much once again for the incredible work that you do. And Mariana, you work on coastal access and public education, as well as talking to stakeholders, policymakers. Can you tell us why this work is so important to you? And, if there has been a pivotal moment that you feel like has really changed your life, or that you feel like you've impacted people in a way that made it really special to you?
As an immigrant coming here when I was 8 years old from Mexico, I actually landed right next to the ocean, about 20 minutes away. And it wasn't really accessible to me. I didn't spend a lot of time when I was a child in these spaces, even though I was right next to it. And a lot of it had to do with lack of transportation, not feeling safe in those areas as an immigrant, not knowing if those areas were for me. And also just, that economical challenges. My mom was a single mother of 4. So she didn't have time to take me to the beach after work or, take me out there. So again, like Raquel was mentioning, it was in Jessica, I believe too. It wasn't until I was older that I really started to appreciate the ocean and the space, and putting my feet in the sand and feeling that ocean breeze, or hiking a mountain and seeing the ocean overview. That did not happen till I was already 19 years old. I was a single young mom. So I think just to speak to a little bit more of those challenges, right? A lot of the social economic challenges that I had led me to become a single young mother. But it also did not want me to stop accessing these areas and showing these areas to mis pollitos, like I call my daughter and my son, or, the next generation. So I think it's really important. Representation with intention really does matter, because growing up, I lived here. We would go to field trips, but the people that we were showing us around did not look like me. So for me, it wasn't a space for me. So I've worked a lot in educating young children, introducing them to the ocean here. I used to work at a local aquarium here in Monterey Bay. So a lot of that work, doing it in both languages. Language justice is such an important piece to all of this, and not just translation, but also that cultural relevancy that Irma was talking about. If I call a fish, it's shaped like a football, si digo eso en español, and it's not going to resonate with them. It's a soccer ball, right? And so having, our cultura ingrained in there, este pez se ve como un bolillo rather than a football, right? So things of that nature. And for me, that is incredibly important to connect our communities to nature, because we already, in many ways, we have already been connected to nature. It's just kind of having that reconnection for many of us, going back to our roots, nuestras raíces. And, this is incredible, important work to make sure that we are actively advocating for these spaces, for climate justice, for water equity. And so all of that we need to be speaking up, and what the best first step is to get back into nature. So that's something that I really admire from all of you amazing luchadoras in this panel, especially Irma. Thank you so much for taking people to the beach, for relocating and reconnecting them to the ocean.
What advice do you all have for when looking for jobs or maneuvering the workplace and encountering fake equity? For example, being tokenized to do equity work, but organizations aren't actually aiming to combat environmental racism. I will leave it up to anyone who wants to take a stab at this one.
I will say, find practices to take care of yourself. If you are being asked to do work that other people are not invested in, it will impact how you approach that work. But that should not in any way be how you value your work. Your work is valuable, even if other people do not value it as valuable as they should be. So I would say equity work is hard work, but take care of yourself, find allies.
Thank you so much. Another question that we have is, do you have any advice for Latinas entering the professional environmental space?
Find yourself a mentor. Find another Latina, because they'll tell you, I wish I had a mentor, but I had a mentor myself, and it was painful, to tell you the truth. And so anytime that any Latina or woman comes to me and says they need help, I support that woman, because it's rough out there, especially if you are in the environmental world. Many times she's the only one there, the only person of color, the only one who truly understands the community, because they're from the community. So I would align myself to, even if it's an elected official, another community-based organization, another community leader. They don't have to be an environmentalist, because it gets lonely when you're the only one. And when the only one, people like tearing you apart, frankly, because you are threatening them. Because when you speak out of knowledge, because you're speaking out of your own personal experience, because of your culture, your history, your traditions. And so you make a lot more sense than a lot of the folks who are talking about, well, how do we get into that community? And blah, da, da, da. So I would align myself with other women, in particular Latinas. I think it's very important. I'm aligning myself to younger Latinas because I feel so out of the loop. I mean, I gotta understand what's going on in the younger generation, so it's never too late to associate yourself with Latinas of all ages and women who have a common purpose and a common goal.
Thank you so much. And I just want to add in that you'd be surprised at how many people are open to receiving like a cold call, an email from you and saying like, hey, or even like an Instagram message, hey, I really admire your work. Do you have 20 minutes to talk about it? I'm really interested in entering this space. Like, so many people are going to be open to that. So please don't be ashamed to reach out to someone. We appreciate that. So please make sure that you're reaching out to mentors. And like Irma said, it could be anyone of all ages, and mentorship relationships go both ways too, right? Sometimes I think as Latinas, we feel like, oh, we're taking so much time and we're taking so much energy from this one person, but they're also learning something about you and your generation and things like that. So it's so important to keep that in mind. And then I'm going to ask one more, if everyone could just maybe give us 5 more minutes, if that's okay. One more question is, what are practices or ways to remain grounded in your knowledge, voice when faced with imposter syndrome, or ways that many of these spaces are dominated by whiteness and male dominated as well? So how do you stay grounded? What keeps you motivated?
Yeah, I think for me, the way that I stay grounded is, reconnecting with your community, reconnecting with your local waterway, your local familia. It's a really good way to do that. And when it comes to imposter syndrome, I think it goes a little bit towards, reconnecting with other Latinas really has helped me to know that I am all powerful. I do have a voice, and my voice matters. And I think when I hear other Latinas speak like I am today, it kind of reaffirms that for me, and what makes me want to reconnect and reach out more.
Thank you so much. Raquel, is there anything else you want to add about what keeps you grounded?
I was going to say a couple of the same things, is community, making sure I spend time in communities like these, in the the local community garden, just leaning on community to affirm the decisions and the choices that I'm making. And also what keeps me grounded is just knowing that this is all for a purpose. This is all for our future. This is all for the future of this planet. And if I can help in doing that, I can have a small part in helping to do that, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to do whatever it takes, or whatever I can.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else that has something else to add?
I would like to say that it's really important for you to know your moral compass and to set guiding principles for your work and for your life. Because values are very important, although ethics is something that we don't talk about often. And I think that our parents instilled these kinds of morals. And even running a nonprofit, we have a moral compass, we have guiding principles, and people say, what are you talking about? Well, when we're in a tough situation, we go back to thinking about that. A moral compass is one of the most important things that you can have and understand. So I would encourage you, if you're lost and confused, that you have a self-talk with yourself and find that moral compass and set some guiding principles for the way you lead and the way you interact with folks, because we all have all this. I think that we have a lot of power.
Thank you, ladies, for that powerful discussion. After hearing that, do we feel inspired? Are we feeling hyped? Well, pull out those phones and make those Instagram and Twitter posts. Make sure to use our hashtag below so you can win that tablet. We want to hear your stories. Speaking of important stories, next up in our program is a very important topic, a topic that has flooded the headlines across the country and has been a focal point of struggle and survival in our community: immigration reform.
Hi everyone, my name is Alondra. I am 17 years old and I am from Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. This fall, I will be attending Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. I am class of 2025, so I am a rising freshman, and I plan to major in international politics and minor either in Spanish or in Arabic. My younger sister and I are actually not immigrants, but both of my parents and my older sister are. So this itself has posed a couple of challenges for my family as we've been living our life out in the United States. I feel like one of the biggest challenges that we've had to face is the fact that my parents have not been able to reunite themselves with my grandparents for, I would say, more than 15 years. It definitely is very difficult, very hard, very emotional to have to live through these life accomplishments without them. I would say that one of the biggest challenges I faced when I was applying for college was filling out FAFSA because my parents don't have a social security number. I did have to mail in their signatures, so it was just a long and tedious process because had they been able to sign electronically with a social security number, it would have just made everything move by a lot faster. But obviously airmail, like, it takes a couple of days. So I feel like it was just stressful for me because I would get emails from schools like, oh, we need your FAFSA to complete your financial aid package. And I was like, it's coming. Just give it a couple of days. And there was like really nothing I could do. It was out of my control. But then I feel like also just being first generation to go to college in my family, my older sister did not pursue a post-secondary education. So it did bring up a lot of challenges for me trying to figure out the college application process, what I needed to do, what like documents I needed, what applications I needed to fill out, and all of these different requirements on top of just like high school clubs, activities. Eventually, I was able to find support. Miss Loretta Perna, who's the coordinator for Hermanitas Chester County, she was able to help me a lot throughout the college application process and help me find answers to a lot of the questions that I had. So it was difficult, and there was days where I was like, I don't even want to do this anymore. But like just pushing through it, really, I'm here now, I'm in college, and it's really nice to see how like my hard work did pay off. I would like them to know that just one person's bad actions do not represent or accurately reflect those of an entire population. So definitely to become a lot more educated about the statistics that people are passing around through the news, because they are not always the most accurate or, like I said, well representative of a population. They would take jobs from Americans, when in reality, I believe that undocumented and mixed status individuals are some of the most hardworking individuals that you can find in the United States. And they often take a lot of the jobs in the economy that are unwanted. For example, like the agriculture, their street vendors, their custodial staff. And those are a lot of jobs that are open to United States Americans, but they just don't take the initiative to take them. It's just never let your status hold you back from going after what you want. There's people believe that just because you're undocumented, you can't pursue a post-secondary education to move yourself forward. But actually there's a lot of like companies or organizations that help students in those positions to reach an academic post-secondary education. And you simply just have to do your research. And this applies to everyone. Something that Miss Loretta Perna, like I said, director of Hermanitas Chester County, always told me is do your research. Because if you never ask, if you never look, the answer is always going to be no. So just take time, sit down, look at scholarships, look at organizations, look at documents that can help you to achieve those dreams that you want to pursue, and keep pursuing them despite how difficult What makes me the most excited about my future is just to see how much more I can learn and how I can use that new knowledge and apply it to my community, both in Canada Square and now that I'm here living in DC. I can't wait to see what internship opportunities or possibly like small job offers I can take up, and how I can use what I learned in the classroom and apply it to quote unquote the real world, to see who I can help and how I can help in any way. So like I hope to be somewhere back again to be in the area. I do want to work for the United States government. So definitely being near DC is going to provide me with a lot of the opportunities and open a lot of doors for me, hopefully, to initiate my career. And also I hope to have done a little bit of traveling around the world and seeing a lot of places that I've been interested in seeing. I've been wanting to go to Spain, France, Japan, Dubai. So hopefully I can check some of those countries off my bucket list.
Hi, my name is Stephanie. I am 20 years old and I am from Kennett Square. I am attending Indiana University of Pennsylvania, IUP, and I will be a junior this fall semester. I am majoring in political science with a track of pre-law and minoring in sociology and human services. I arrived to the United States at age 8, and when I came here, my whole life made a 180-degree shift. I remember that it happened on one chilly night when my dad decided to come to El Norte. We were not expecting that, and I remember that it wasn't planned that our whole family would be coming, only my dad, but we had to follow him. And I remember that when we arrived, I had many struggles. One of them, of course, being the language, as many individuals who arrive to a new country. And also the fact of facing a different school system than I was used to, well as translating for my parents when making doctor's appointments or paying utility bills. And as years passed, I began to understand more about living in the United States and my status, as well as new and more challenging struggles that it began to emerge as the years passed. Since the beginning, my mom always was very honest and truthful regarding my status. She always told me that if I wanted to pursue a higher education, I needed to work harder than my peers to be able to attend college. And during that time, I didn't understand as much what that meant. I remember that during my senior year of high school, I was faced with the fact that I could not apply to FAFSA or FIA, and that many of the scholarships in many of the scholarships that I could have applied, I couldn't because of my status. And I remember that during my senior year, while completing college applications, essays, and few scholarship applications, I was often stressed while looking at the requirements of the scholarships and qualifying for all the requirements except for the one that said permanent resident or U.S. citizen. Though we are hardworking, passionate, intelligent, and humble individuals that just want to have a better life, better opportunities, a home where we can feel safe and secure for us and for future generations. I think the fact that we are here to seek benefits from the government, which of course is totally wrong, that has been a stereotype that I bet many of us have heard of it more than once. And as I stated previously, we are individuals who are hard workers and just want a better life. I often think that why can't I study abroad like my friends? And I stop for a minute and then I think, well, you are receiving an education in such a great and amazing nation like the US. And give those struggles, barriers, those chains a meaning, because trust me, those struggles, barriers, and change might be an inspiration for future generations. I would like to be both socially and politically active in the future because I want to help my Latino community and fight for all those individuals that are in the shadows, fearful to speak up. Everything. I just can't wait for the opportunities and blessings that will come for my family and I, as well as for undocumented and mixed status families. I wish to continue being a role model for my younger siblings and cousins, as well for others. And also, I hope to create a nonprofit organization that focuses on giving private scholarships to the undocumented and dreamers, and to be employed by local or state government, and basically keep working on making my American dream a reality.
I don't know about you, but I feel a little more excited about the future after hearing these young hermanitas. All I can say is the future is now. Now is the time to shake up the world. No matter who you are, what your status is, take big action and change the future for the better. If you felt what I said or what the speakers said, make sure to let us know how you're gonna shake up the world. Post it on Instagram and Twitter using our hashtags. Speaking of shaping the future, our next panel speaks on exactly that in our next segment, Tech, Education, and Access. Here is a discussion with some real change makers presented by Hispanic Technology and Telecommunications, or HTTP partnerships.
Hello, my name is Alejandro Rourke, and I am the Executive Director for Hispanic Technology and Telecommunications Partnership. HTTP is a CEO roundtable of 16 of the country's oldest and largest Latino civil rights organizations who work in coalition to promote the access, adoption, and full utilization of technology and telecommunications resources by the Latino community across the United States. HTTP's Connected Communities Digital Forum is dedicated to exploring the intersection of ethics, technology, and public policy by engaging scholars, community thought leaders, and policymakers from diverse backgrounds to give greater context to the lived reality of the Latino community within our increasingly digital world. Today's installment is a celebration of Latina leadership in tech and telecommunications policy. And as we think of that, women, and specifically Latinas, are the fastest growing segment of entrepreneurs across the United States. They are at the forefront of every social movement, from our economic justice movement, the environmental justice movement, workers' justice movement. And just recently, it was two Latinas and through their leadership that made our arrival on Mars possible.
I am honored to be joined today by three dynamic Latina women leaders who, through their example, are charting a new path towards a more inclusive tech future where every person has a digital connection and the necessary skills to participate and benefit from our 21st century digital economy. We have today with us Alisa Valentin, Special Advisor to FCC Commissioner Starks. We have Diana Moreno, Attorney Advisor at the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. And we have Jessica Martinez, Legislative Director for Congressman Mark Vesey. So thank you all for being here with us today. I am very excited to hear your stories. But let's start with Diana. I would love to start our conversation with you, Diana, because I know your parents immigrated from Mexico and you grew up in a community on the US-Mexico border. So do you mind sharing a little bit more about you and your personal journey into tech policy and the work that you currently do at NTIA, please?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to today's discussion. It's a pleasure to be here today, and especially surrounded by my colleagues and who are magnificent women and I have the pleasure of working with in the DC tech sphere. So as Silvana mentioned, I'm an attorney advisor at NTIA, the National Telecommunications and Information Administration. I'm basically an internet attorney, and my agency works with providing expert advice to the President of the United States when it comes to issues related to telecommunications, the internet, spectrum. So whenever there's an issue on the news having to do with social media, 5G, satellites, you can be sure that the President's going to turn to us for any recommendations or research. And my agency works very hard to make sure that the internet tries to be more accessible and affordable to as many Americans as possible. And we do that through grants and research. And also, as you mentioned, I myself are a proud El Pasoan. I was born and raised on the border. Over 70% of the population, if you don't already know, is Latino. So I grew up with a strong sense of community and cultura. I am also a first generation everything when it comes to my family. I was the first one to go to college, graduate from college, first to go to grad school, first attorney, first professional. And it's not just for my core family, it was also for my extended family. So all my tios and tias and primos, I was the first one to break that far. And it's this all because my parents placed such a high value on education. My dad both of my parents worked very manual intensive jobs throughout their lives. My dad worked as a custodian, window washer, and ultimately in shipping, where he would load and unload 18-wheeler trucks. And my mom worked night shifts at a textile company, maquiladora. And so they would come home very tired at the end of the day, and they would really try to instill to my brother and I, like, to become something of ourselves, to not have to work so hard in your bodies to the bone just for so little money. So it also helped that I had a passion for technology early on to fuel those dreams of education. And I blame my abuelita for that, because my abuelita was a gamer. She loved playing video games. So every weekend she would get together all her vices and she would turn on her Super Nintendo and just play some games. And it really brought together the family when it comes to just that type of entertainment. So when I got to middle school, even though I went to not the best ranked school in El Paso, it was kind of poor. It was a Title I school in Texas. But we had a really good gifted and talented program. And it was through that program that I learned how to program at an early age. I learned how to make my own computer, how to build it, and even a little bit of electrical engineering. And so just knowing this bit of information made me excited that maybe I can make a video game that will make my grandma proud of me and happy and just continuously bring the family together for many nights. And I did start out as a computer science major in undergrad, but as one does during undergrad, you also find out other passions that you have. And so I found out that I had a deep passion for policy and the law. I became fascinated with the idea of being an attorney and having the power to influence policies and benefit my community and just help them at a much grander scale. And so I switched majors. I switched to political science. I was able to spend a semester on Capitol Hill interning there, and I fell in love with Washington, D.C. And I made it a point to come back to D.C. in law school. And that's exactly what I did. But even then, after graduation, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had done something wrong. I was still keeping up with emerging technologies. I missed programming. And so the love for technology was still there. And so after a bit of an identity crisis, I decided, hey, there's a way for me to combine both the law and technology. So I went back to law school, this time for a postgraduate law degree, and it's called an LLM. And I studied intellectual property, but it was a way for me to do this. I got to intern at many technology-focused organizations around DC. For example, Iridium Communications, which makes satellite phones. I was at TSA, where I worked with inventors that came up with the technology to detect national security threats. I was interning at NTIA, and I also worked for ACT, the App Association, which is a trade organization that represents app developers. So since then, my career has been so fulfilling. I'm very happy with my decision.
Excellent. What an amazing story. And I can relate to where you said you were having a little bit of an identity crisis, because I feel like maybe I'm going through something like that right now after becoming a mom of two in the last 2 years. Before that, I was working in journalism all the time, and now I am a full-time mom doing small jobs here and there as a journalist, not with a full-time job. That's what I meant. So I am going through something like that. So it's important for women to know that this is a normal thing. It happens, right? It's not always the same for the rest of your life. There's up and downs and there's changes. And that makes you who you are in the end. And that it gives you your strengths. Thank you, Diana, for sharing that story with us. I would like to continue with Alisa. Alisa, I love to hear about your experience entering the world of tech policy. We just heard a little bit of Diana's experience. Can you share about your personal background and your professional journey? What sparked your interest in telecommunications policy?
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me here today. So again, my name is Elisa Valentine. I am the special advisor to FCC Commissioner Jeffrey Starks. So I work on broadband access and adoption policies, particularly as it relates to communities of color, low-income communities, and other marginalized groups. Future of Work is also in my portfolio, as well as prison phone justice. So I've had kind of a interesting journey to this space. So just kind of like, going, back in my life. I grew up in South Georgia for the most part. My parents were in the military though. So we lived all over the world in Kansas, California, Germany, Turkey, Belgium, all over the place. And, through all of those experiences and kind of like growing up in like military communities, I was so used to always being around people from different backgrounds. And I didn't really have like a real understanding of like race and ethnicity until I moved to South Georgia. And I was constantly being asked what race I was. And it was then when I was like, 8, 9 years old, that my mom was having to explain to me like, that she's Black and from Hazelhurst, Georgia. My dad's Puerto Rican, grew up in Buffalo, New York. But again, when you kind of grow up in multicultural, multi-ethnic, multiracial, households, it's just normal to have people around you who kind of have like different traditions. But, different, in my view, is a good thing. And so whether it be, visiting, my dad's family in Buffalo or like going to Puerto Rico with him or visiting my mom's family in Hazelhurst, Georgia, it was always great to learn more about the traditions of, various parts of my families. And I always want to be someone who, carries those traditions on. And I would say, I was thinking a little bit about the fact that, my grandparents, they definitely were folks who had to do that manual labor, right? And in my household, my parents always talked about the fact that you always want to do, more and better than the generation before you. My parents both have associate's degrees, or both my brother and I have PhDs. And, college was not really an option in our household. It was more so, what college are you going to and what are you going to study? And when I was a senior, I was a junior in high school, I was really interested in journalism because even though I know it's going to sound like super dorky, but I went to like this CNN camp when I was in high school, and I just got really interested in journalism, decided I wanted to study journalism. I went to University of Florida, studied journalism there. Then I went on to Northwestern and studied journalism. But I also learned about, the fact that I didn't know a lot about how media really works. I knew how to create stories, but I didn't know a lot about, media ownership. And I got my PhD at Howard University, and it was my first year there. I learned a lot about media ownership, media policy, and obviously we're already in DC. All my friends were like starting to become, lawyers, graduate from Howard Law. And I was like, oh yeah, this whole, media policy world, this is definitely for me. I got really interested in issues, again, on media ownership. I started doing research related to digital divide. I specifically looked at the city of Philadelphia and the digital divide there that impacts Latinx households and Black households. And from there, I went to, after I graduated, I became a Communications Justice Fellow at Public Knowledge, studied broadband access and artificial intelligence policies, future of work. And then I went on to become the special advisor in Commissioner Stark's office. But and something that, kind of is always in the background of all the work I do is definitely, how I can help create a more equitable and more just society. And I think that, we truly are our ancestors' wildest dreams, but it's important for us to be able to, reach back and, and give back to our communities, whether it be through having conversations like this or in, the policies that we kind of push forward and advocate for.
Excellent. Elisa, thank you for sharing your story. I think we're starting to see a couple of themes here. One is the role that family plays in shaping our perception about what is possible, both in our education and in our careers. Two, how internships are a great way to explore topics and careers that we might not have considered before. And three, the fact that because there are still very few Latinas represented as a part of the policy-making process, it is important to first and foremost express interest in the topic and seek out mentors. Now, Jessica, similar to Diana, your parents also immigrated to the United States from Mexico, and you were born and raised in Utah. So how did you get from Utah to working for the FCC, the very important Energy and Commerce Committee, and now as a legislative director for a member of Congress?
Yeah, thank you so much again. And it was so great hearing the other ladies' stories as well. Just, I like Diana said, we kind of work with each other and know each other from the DC Latinas in Tech space. We're small, but we're growing. And so it's really great to hear just more coming out from them. I'm Jessica Martinez. I am originally from Utah. And it's funny, Elisa was talking about how she grew up in a multicultural area, and for me, it was just such a complete opposite. Where my parents are, from Mexico, but I was born in Utah, and it's predominantly white. I mean, it's a very, very, I would say, a lot of the Latinos that were in my community were extended family, or just like other people. So it was good. I love growing up in where I'm from a small rural town. It's called Tremonton. And, I graduated high school. I took some time, to be honest, away from college before going in because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just kind of tried to find myself a little bit. I worked a bunch of blue collar jobs. I was, as a cashier. I worked at a call center. I did a bunch of it. I served at restaurants, and you touched on family. I think family is a really important part of my life. It helps. They help guide me in a lot of my decisions, and they're always my backbone when I have questions or when I need somebody to rely on. So very close knit with my family and with my extended family. And my brother, actually, he's the oldest. I'm the youngest of four, and my brother was the first one to graduate high school, go to college, kind of like Diana's story. And, he had mentioned to me, Jessica, if you're really trying to get out of your small town, like you got to go back to school. And so I did. I enrolled in the University of Utah, and I started, I was actually more interested in languages. So I understood Spanish. I wanted to learn French, so to be different, I guess. But I was actually going back to just some of my other jobs that I was working at. I was serving at a restaurant, and really my first taste of kind of the political lens of things was through lobbying and through trade associations, and kind of seeing their interactions on how they, talk to people in the state capitol and stuff. And so coincidentally, one of my French classmates, I was talking to her about this, and she was like, "Well, my husband's a lobbyist," and I was like, "Oh, give me a job." And so she actually, with connections and networking, honestly, was kind of got my first start working in the state. I worked at a trade association doing state lobbying, and then through the University of Utah's it was the Hinckley Institute of Politics. They have a program where, for political science majors, you can go out and do an internship in DC. I applied because I think, when I started working at the state capitol, I just noticed a lot of people didn't look like me. And when you see lawmakers or public figures talking about issues, and they talk about it in a lens where you're like, that's not how I perceive it. I wanted to see what else was out there and how I could really make a difference and how I could bring the voice of my family, of my community into the table and to these decision-making areas. So I moved to DC. I got an internship working for then Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid's office. I sold my car, and me and my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, we moved out to DC, came out here. That was back in 2013. And, really it was just a lot of networking. And then just to kind of hard pivot back into what brought me to tech. I've always been interested in tech, and I love sci-fi. I love the idea that there's like all of these new technologies that can come up and really recreate our world. And I was always one to ask questions. And so, really tried to network, hustle to get jobs, but also letting people know, like, I'm interested in this work and I'm going to do good work and I'm going to show my value here. And really through that has helped me, land some of the positions that I was able to get. I started, like I said, in the Senate. I went to an outside lobbying firm for about 2 years. I came back into the House working for the Energy and Commerce Committee, which has jurisdiction over the FCC and the FTC and a lot of other issues related to technology and telecommunications. And then after that, I was able to work for now acting chairwoman Rosenworcel in her office as special advisor for about 2.5 years, just really homing in on a lot more policy and just taking it all in, policy related to tech and telecom and media ownership and all of these great topics that these ladies have already brought up. And then it was just, again, with some relationships that I had in networking, one of my friends had mentioned that she's leaving her office and she's like, I think you'd be a good fit for my boss, Representative Mark Bisi. And he is on the Energy and Commerce Committee, subcommittee on communications and technology. And so, it was like a perfect fit for me where I knew the committee, I knew the work. My boss is a really great guy, very laid back, very interested in wanting to bridge the digital divide and making sure that, there's digital equity all around. So that is what brought me here.
Excellent. Great story.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go.
A citizen looks out for everyone. Make sure they're included. We're out to give 10 million youth the resources they need to thrive, with digital access and technical skills so they don't feel so distant from learning, whether they're here or here. Access to a promising future. That's our promise moving forward. Citizen Verizon, our plan for economic, environmental, and social advancement.
And we're back. We want to thank HTTP again and everyone involved in the panel. Now, there was one segment that was the most talked about this last year and a half, and that is health and wellness. The pandemic changed the entire world and impacted every single one of us. It impacted the very fabric of life in our community, even fellow Latinas like you. In this segment, we hear from a COVID survivor and fellow Hermanita, as well as we check out a special video from Dr. J. Mario Molina, where he answers your most requested questions surrounding COVID-19.
Hello, I'm Isabella and I'm from Baytown, Texas, and I'm 18 years old. So I'll be attending the University of Texas at Austin, and I'll be studying health and society on the pre-medical track. I got it in North Dakota because me and my mom and my two little brothers, we traveled there when my dad was working there out of town. We probably shouldn't have traveled at that time. Well, we definitely shouldn't have been traveling at that time because it was very unsafe, but we thought we were putting in all the precautions that we should have. And we made sure to social distance 2 weeks in advance, and then we were planning on social distancing and staying at home in my dad's cabin that he was staying in for 2 weeks also. But you know, the times that we were living in were just very different. After I had COVID, I had to start school in late August, so I don't think I gave myself a lot of time to rest, and I wanted to just jump back into all the things that I've been doing. I work part-time at a grocery store. I was an early college high school student, so I was doing high school and college work, and then I was helping my brothers do their virtual schooling and also trying to do mine. It was a lot for me to handle when my body was telling me I couldn't do all of those things. So I started to feel very unmotivated and just kind of lost. And then that's whenever I kind of had to tell my mom, like, hey, we gotta look into this, because it was definitely not like me. I'm a very self-motivated, determined student. And then out of school, even at my home, I was having a hard time doing chores and stuff. So I had to talk with my mom, and we were able to have me see a counselor, and that has been really, really helpful. So I've kind of been experiencing depression and anxiety, something that most teens kind of face when they're younger and things. With COVID, it just kind of widened the issue. So that was hard for me. Another thing that I was having is chest pains and heart palpitations, shortness of breath still after COVID. So I also had to start seeing someone for that issue. I now see a cardiologist, and I have been diagnosed with myocarditis. I believe that's how it's said. Basically, it's just inflammation of the heart, and just a heart issue that surprisingly is really common after COVID that they've been seeing. But although all these things are common after COVID, there still isn't an answer, because this is so new. I would like to tell teens out there that definitely COVID can affect you. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was kind of experienced loss from both sides of my family. So not that I'm happy that I experienced that, but I am grateful that I was able to learn how serious it was such at the beginning of the pandemic, because I know a lot of my friends, they really didn't know people who had COVID, so they kind of felt like, oh, it's not, they knew it was happening, but it wasn't really hitting close to home. So I would also like to encourage everyone to be vaccinated, just because, well, there's a lot of reasons. First, it's really safe, it's effective, and also I know so many of us want to just get back to where we were a year ago or 2 years ago, and this is a way. I was so excited when I got vaccinated, and also my grandpa, just to be able to hug him, and those are things that we kind of took for granted.
Really important to rebuild trust. And after 4 years of mixed messages, people don't know who to believe or what to believe. And certainly in the dark days of the pandemic, when we were frightened, when we were shut in, and when people that we knew were getting sick and some of them were dying, there was an element of despair. Now we do have a vaccine. And the vaccine does two things. When you're vaccinated, you protect yourself from the virus. But what I think is even more important is that by being vaccinated, you become part of the solution. And we all have to play a role in this. We can't simply rely on the government to fix the problem for us. By becoming vaccinated, you break the chain of transmission. As we get more vaccine, as more becomes available, and the government has purchased a tremendous amount of vaccine, it then becomes an effort for us to mobilize our communities and make sure that everyone gets out and gets the vaccine. And that may mean taking your grandmother. It may mean, taking someone who's shut in. It may mean helping someone who's afraid. It means getting vaccinated and showing people that you got vaccinated and you're safe and you didn't have any problems. We hear terrible stories in the media about vaccine reactions, but the truth is, not a single person has died because of the vaccine. Not one. It is the safest vaccine probably in the history of mankind. And it will be a game changer. This is the way we're going to get back to a normal life. But it's going to take all of us cooperating and helping each other. Masks do stop the transmission of the virus. And we have good data from the CDC that shows that wearing double masks, one mask on top of another, can cut transmission of the virus by 95%. But the very best thing is to be vaccinated. And it's alarming that so many people are so distrustful of the vaccines. They were developed quickly, but they were developed with the best technology that's been around for a decade, and they are probably the safest vaccines that we've ever manufactured. It's a little bit like a football game. Our team just scored a big touchdown in the third quarter. But that doesn't mean we won the game yet. We got to keep playing all the way to the end until we suppress this virus and the pandemic is over. And it's going to be a little bit painful for people to, wait and postpone things. But it's worth it, because at the end of this year, we're looking at perhaps a normal life. I think we're probably still going to have to get booster shots periodically to protect us against the virus. But I think we can beat this thing if we follow the rules and if we work together.
Ha pasado más de un año.
Donde lo normal
es lo único que no ha pasado. Pero ahora hay esperanza.
La vacuna del COVID.
Aunque esto ha sido un poco confuso.
Por eso es muy importante que tengas un plan.
Plan your vaccine.
Visita planificatuvacuna.com
para que te informes de todo lo que necesitas saber, cómo, cuándo y dónde la puedes encontrar.
Es hora de tomar acción.
Y planifiques tu vacuna. Y todos podamos estar juntos de nuevo.
Pronto podremos estar juntos de nuevo.
Thank you, Isabella and Dr. Molina, for the insight. And here's another friendly reminder to get vaccinated if you can. It takes all of us to beat the virus. Now on to our final segment. And with that being said, it's your final time to post for your chance to win your very own Microsoft Surface tablet. What inspired you during the conference? How are you going to unapologetically take over the world? Let's hear it. You are the future leaders of the world. And speaking of future leaders of the world, this final segment embodies just that. Get ready to dive in and enjoy a special talk with author Jessica Mora on how to navigate college and awaken your inner leader. Oh, and how can I forget, presented by the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, a very special performance from the one and only Karol G.
Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Jessica Mora. I am a first-generation graduate from the University of Chicago. I majored in public policy, graduated last year, class of 2020. And this year, in April of 2021, I published my book, Spread Your Wings and Fly, How to Effectively Navigate Through College as a First-Generation Low-Income Student. I remember when I was going into my senior year of college, I did a theater program at Northwestern, and it was, a really intense program used to teach us different theater techniques, different acting exercises and tools. But the main takeaway I had from that program was when a theater instructor told us as a class, chase the work that lights your soul on fire. And that was a fairly short phrase that he told us. He would repeat it almost every day when we had class with him. That was a phrase that really stuck with me from the point that he said it up until now. Like 6 years later, it's still something that I go back to, because I feel like it's something that propels me personally to do the work and do the activities that really bring joy into my life. And that can be, that phrase, while it does seem like a fairly straightforward phrase, is something that can be tricky to do. It can be tricky to do because, what if you don't know exactly what that work is that sets your soul on fire? What if you're in an environment where you're still trying to figure it out, trying to navigate what that means to you? I think that's why it's so tricky to, if the sentiment is there for you to want to follow that, it's hard to really do. And growing up, Latina in a Mexican household, that was something that I was always kind of figuring out for myself. What is that work? What is that activity that really gives me joy? And how do I get there? Those weren't a lot of conversations that I was having with my family. I think growing up, something that I felt a lot tangibly was what it meant to be a first-generation American growing up in a Mexican household, what those expectations were of my family to do in school, to do, in work and internships. I had it all figured out, and I didn't exactly. And that felt kind of bad. And so that's why that chase the work that lights your soul on fire was something that, while it was important to me, I wasn't sure, how do I juggle this work that brings me joy with these cultural expectations, these family expectations? Where do I find that happy medium? And for me, it was really, college where I had to learn to figure that out. College was the first time that I was living somewhere else, not with my family. So I kind of had that space to determine my own world, my own life, make my own decisions about what I was doing with my time, how I was studying, what I wanted to major in. And even, those conversations, while I was kind of talking to my family at that time, it was a really weird environment because, college, I feel like, is a time when you want to get good grades, you want to do the activities, you want to kind of fit into this new community, but you also don't know exactly how. I think a big part in the Latino culture is, you get good grades, you put your head down and you just go for it, you get it done. But that's not what the expectation was in college. It's not something I knew going in. I think it took me a little while to learn that when you are in college, or even in high school, something that can be applicable is that professors want you to reach out. Professors want to build relationships with you. They're not just there to teach a class, even though that is a big part of their job. They're also there to mentor you, to point you to different resources, to be a part of your network. They are actually a very big part of your college career if you let them be there for you. And a big part is also, self-advocacy. I think that's something doesn't come very naturally to me, learning to ask for help, because I like to feel independent. I like to feel like I can do things on my own, and that's not always the case. Realistically, there will be times in which I won't know what's going on, and that's okay. There will be times when you don't know what you're majoring in. That's okay. There will be times when you don't know what internship you're going to do over the summer or what job you want after college. That's okay. I know I personally didn't have a plan. I know people who did, who had it all planned out. They're going to do high school here, do college here, major in this, do these extracurriculars. After college, they're going to, go to grad school and do this or that. That's never been me, for better or for worse. I always go back to that, chase the work that lights your soul on fire.
Please welcome back Hispanic Heritage and SPIDA awardee, Carol G.
No sé qué pasó, no sé si se apagó el amor. Hoy puedo decir que nunca lo sintió. Lo que me costó entender, eso solo lo sabe Dios. No sé qué pasó, no sé si se apagó el amor. Hoy puedo decir que nunca le importó. Lo que me costó entender, eso solo lo sabe Dios. Le entregué más y más de mí, y cada palabra falsa le leí, porque mi única intención era que él fuera feliz mucho más que yo, y que eso fuera único en el mundo, porque tenerlo cerca era mi mundo. Pero no le importó dañar mi corazón y hoy me cuesta mirarlo. Lealtad había de sobra, él sabía que yo era su sombra, pero tarde entendí que su amor no es amor. No sé qué pasó, no sé si se apagó el amor. Hoy puedo decir que nunca lo sintió. Lo que me costó entender, eso solo. No sé qué pasó, no sé si se apagó el amor. Hoy puedo decir que nunca le importó. Lo que me costó entender, eso solo. Las sonrisas ya se han borrado. Hoy recuerdo cuando parecía feliz a mi lado. Ok, me engañaron tus mentiras cuando me mirabas a la cara y me decías mía. Estaba ciego mi corazón, pensaba que era su amor, pero me equivoqué y lo entendí, porque él se equivocó cuando me falló, y que esto fuera único en el mundo, porque tenerlo cerca era mi mundo. Pero no le importó dañar mi corazón y hoy me cuesta mirarlo. Hoy me cuesta mirarlo. Dañó mi corazón, hoy no quiero mirarlo. No sé qué pasó, nunca le importó. No, no, no. Esto solo lo sabe Dios.
Muchas gracias a todos. Gracias. Can we give it up for Carol G on her performance? Also, thank you so much to Jessica for your impactful words and guidance. As well as a special thanks to all of our speakers we had today. Your hard work, knowledge, and fight for the future empowers all of us. As we reach our conclusion, we would also like to thank our sponsors for making this conference possible, and everyone who has supported Mana and being the largest Latina organization in the country. The future is now, everyone. You are all the future, and we are so excited to see how you shake up the world. Make sure to keep posting where the winner will be announced after our event. I am Vanessa Cias, and thank you so much for joining us today.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!